Season 2 of Peacemaker has officially begun, and with the release of the first 2 episodes, so far critics and fans are already happy with what they're seeing, saying that in episode 1, DC has already managed to successfully tie Peacemaker into what's going on outside of his story, and into the rest of the universe, with cameos like Superman and Supergirl, which puts an end to the Snyderverse and smoothly disconnects Peacemaker. What makes this even more impressive is that Peacemaker isn't meant to be the main figure or the Captain America of the DCU, but the studio was able to use him as a key piece of transition, resulting in a connected story that their audience can follow. So in today's video, I'm going to break down 5 reasons why DC connected Peacemaker to the new universe perfectly.
Get your spectral sock out, nerds. This gonna get good.
Reason 1. The biggest challenge DC has faced over the last decade is how messy their universe has felt. The Snyderverse movies always felt like potential meaningful events that never fully paid off or felt worth the watch. The CW shows, which held around 52 known Earths that were sometimes connected and sometimes didn't, then all merged, which was somehow more confusing. And then a tall pile of cancelled projects that were likely going to help fill out certain blanks in stories that left fans wondering what actually mattered. All this was confusing, frustrating, and honestly one of the main reasons people stopped trusting DC's long-term vision, feeling like the studio had no control of direction. But with Peacemaker Season 2, DC found a way to close the door of confusion and frustration without slamming it in their fans' faces. Instead of pretending the Snyderverse never existed, the show subtly acknowledges they've moved past it, without being an over-explained story that's dragged out for the whole season. At the end of Peacemaker Season 1, the Justice League was depicted as the team that showed up too late. But in the Season 2 recap, the show readdresses this. But this time we see the Justice Gang, and characters like Superman and Supergirl. And characters like Superman and Supergirl have already been introduced from the Superman film and still exist in this world. But these aren't the exact past versions that the fans got used to before. This allows the audience to accept that the old timeline at one point did matter in a way, but it's no longer the main focus. And this is done in such a smooth way, it's not a clear change that's completely ignored by the rest of the world, like Marvel's recast for Bruce Banner, but it's not overly focused on either. The story doesn't take more than 10 seconds to acknowledge the change, because whether we like it or not, the Justice League cameo was defining for the overall story. But because of how DC chose to transition the Peacemaker series over to the new universe, it changes the story without removing the definition.
I can explain this.
Which leads me to my next point, Reason 2. One of the smartest moves DC made with Peacemaker Season 2 was answering the big question right away. As I said, in the first episode we see Superman, Supergirl, and the Justice Gang appear. And although it was only for a split second, this instantly tells the audience that this is the new DC universe and everything is connected, without being too preachy. Like in replacement for Aquaman and The Flash, we got banter from Guy Gardner and Hulk Girl. They didn't give us an update on the new universe as if we had no idea what was going on. But the reason this is such a big deal is because in the past, DC often danced around these connections. We'd hear Batman or Superman's name dropped in a CW show, even when multiple series were going through world-ending events. Or we just focused heavily on side characters while the main heroes felt completely off limits. That approach left the world feeling empty, like the stories were happening in isolated bubbles instead of one shared universe. But to stay on track, by showing these new versions of Superman and Supergirl early on, it puts weight behind the idea that all these stories are connected, and it reassures fans that Peacemaker isn't just a side project. It's an essential piece of a bigger puzzle. And after years of mixed signals, DC finally cares about their audience's response. This kind of thought and care builds excitement and instantly gives the new DCU more credibility than the old approach ever could.
I don't have anything in common with you.
The third reason why Peacemaker connects to the new DCU so perfectly is because it never forgets who the story is really about, which is Peacemaker himself. This could have easily turned into a show that was just cameos and setups for a bigger DCU, like the Flash movie. But James Gunn keeps the focus tight on Christopher Smith and his personal journey. The story may drift slightly off him to give other characters depth, but he always feels like the main point, and we still get the laughs, awkwardness, and important moments that made him such a standout character in the Suicide Squad. But the important thing here is that the cameos and universe building doesn't overshadow the main character. Instead, it enhances his story. Seeing Superman or the Justice Gang show up last minute isn't fan service, as centered around him as his story is, can still acknowledge the universe that exists around him, and how he can fit into a world with legends and icons, instead of being locked into his world and his world only. And that makes the DCU feel more grounded. The studio isn't just focusing on the gods of the universe at work. They're also succeeding to follow a very human, very messy character, trying to find his place. That balance is something Marvel may have nailed early on, but struggles with now. So to see DC get it right in this way is refreshing for audiences. So while the cameos introduce a bigger scale, it's the character-driven storytelling that keeps people invested, and that's why this connection to the DCU feels more natural instead of forced. The fourth reason Peacemaker connects so perfectly to the new DCU is because the tone of the show matches James Gunn's larger vision for the universe. For years, DC has struggled with tone. The Snyderverse was dark and heavy. The CW shows leaned into a campy and inconsistent vibe. And the movies all felt like they belonged to completely different worlds. Like Man of Steel being dark and serious and focused on the reality of a man trying to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. Compared to the 2016 Justice League, where the world was literally on the verge of ending, but the team still had time to crack jokes and hit on Wonder Woman. So there was no unifying style and no sense that everything clicked together. But James Gunn has built a reputation for blending humor, brutal action, and real heart with a passionate message. And that's exactly what Peacemaker delivers. It's not afraid to be senseless and funny one second, then serious and emotional the next. That balance is what makes the new DCU feel fresh, instead of trying to copy Marvel or repeat old mistakes. What's smart is that this tone works for both big heroes and smaller characters. If DC makes someone like Peacemaker feel compelling in this style without having to drag their fans kicking and screaming, then Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman will feel even bigger and more grounded when they eventually appear again. In other words, Peacemaker is able to act as his blueprint. So when people watch this season and see how well humor, action, and emotion blend, it reassures them that Gunn's vision for the entire DCU is consistent, and he's not losing focus. It's not a patchwork universe anymore. It's one connected world, all told through the same lens. And that's something DC has desperately needed. At the end of the day, tone is the glue that holds a universe together. And Peacemaker semi-proves that James Gunn has found the right blend of elements. If this style works for the weirdest anti-hero in the DCU, it should go over well when the heavy-hitter superheroes step into the same world.
Say that again?
Now, the fifth and final reason Peacemaker connects so perfectly to the new DC universe is because aside from James Gunn's vision, it shows proof of long-term planning. One of fans' biggest complaints when it comes to DC, that they were just throwing projects at the wall to see what stuck. We got sudden and unexpected reboots, random spin-offs, and canceled projects, which means no real sense of direction. Every new announcement felt like DC was starting over instead of building forward, or actually just trying to fix the universe. Because side note, we wouldn't be going through a reboot right now if somebody just cared enough to put a stop to what DC was doing. But Peacemaker Season 2 changes this. By tying in Superman, Supergirl, and the Justice Gang right away, DC is showing that these characters aren't just appearing for shock value. They're part of a bigger roadmap, and they will still be here long term. Peacemaker isn't just being used as filler content, he's being used as a stepping stone that blows the old universe away. Not that it was hard to do in the first place, but it helps launch the new one with purpose. And this is what fans have been waiting for, a clear sign that DC is thinking ahead, not just one project at a time. It proves that the cameos we're seeing now will actually pay off later, that the tone will remain consistent, and that every story will serve as a purpose in the larger DCU plot. So fans and critics can confidently go to the theaters knowing that they're not wasting their money on something that won't be important 2 movies from now. With DC saying this is the start of something new, they actually mean it. Peacemaker is the test run that shows us the future of the DC universe isn't just random, it's being planned, it's intentional, and it's finally something fans can care about. All that being said, I have high hopes for the rest of Peacemaker, and I'm confident that James Gunn will do the right thing with the series. I'm happy to see that DC's audience hasn't wasted their time going to see Superman, because they probably would have felt that feeling if this show came out 10 years ago.
I don't have anything in common with you.
But summary of all my rambling is Peacemaker is the perfect project to connect the universe to the bigger story going on around it without leaving fans confused. If you made it this far in the video, you either agree with what I'm saying or you're preparing to write a hate comment. Either way, go ahead, like and subscribe so I can keep pointing out Marvel and DC's mistakes, or so you can keep commenting about how much you disagree. Until then, have a wonderful day.